If you don't know, my name is Ramon Lowe. I'm the Director of Membership and Industry Engagement for the Airport Minority Advisory Council. And thank you for joining us here at AMAC 360. And if you don't know or not aware, AMAC 360 used
Thank
to
you.
be our third Friday membership meetings. And essentially, we've since pivoted and rebranded it in a way that we want to make sure that it's, again, 360, a nice roundtable discussion on many various topics. But before we get to that, I would like to introduce Andre Titus, our Senior Manager of Programs and Operations, to talk about a very, very important event. Andre?
Thank you, Ramon. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. Just wanted to give a quick announcement and update for folks that are looking to register, if you haven't already done so, for our Economic Opportunity and Policy Forum taking place in Washington, D.C., March 13th through the 15th. We're about a month away, a little inside a month away. And we're still looking to make sure that we get those registrations in order to help drive registration. We've gotten some confirmations recently. We will be updating our agenda online very shortly, but we do have some confirmed speakers. We have finalized the panels, and you'll see those panel descriptions as well coming very shortly online, as well as the airports that have committed for the Airport Opportunity Forum. We can share with you folks that the Austrian Bergstrom International Airport will be attending the Opportunity Forum, as well as representatives from the Port of New York, New Jersey, primarily talking about opportunities at JFK. As many of you know, there's been a lot of redevelopment going on there. We will also have a representative from the Baltimore, Washington, Thurgood Marshall International Airport, the airport sponsor of our event. And we will also have Seattle Tacoma coming as well. We are working on some additional confirmations, so there are more to come. But the big headline is we need to get those registrations in. If you folks are looking to take advantage of that, our room rate on the hotel block, that expires on Tuesday. Quick reminder, Monday is a national holiday, so you guys may want to make sure you get those registrations in. Other than that, folks, we have a great lineup for you today. Ramon's put together a terrific panel, so I hope you enjoy this afternoon's 360. If anyone has questions about the Economic Opportunity and Policy Forum, please feel free to reach out to me directly, or Ramon as well. We can provide any assistance or registration you guys need. Look forward to seeing you all in DC very shortly.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Andre. And just for anyone who's in attendance right now, I did drop in the chat a link to the amacforum.com website. So it's a place where you can kind of go ahead and register. You can reserve your hotel room, but also if you're interested in a sponsorship, if you're interested in supporting our efforts in that way, you can view the various levels of sponsorship. So please make sure you register and attend and join us in DC. And I know Lisa's going to be there, I believe, right? So
Yes, I am.
if you want to connect with Lisa, she's going to be there. So let me now transition over to our roundtable. And if you weren't aware, obviously February is Black History Month, and I thought this is a great opportunity to get together a number of entrepreneurs, people that I've known and gotten to know over the course of my career. And honestly, I cannot think of a better group than the folks that are joining us here today. So let me introduce them real quick. We have Dee Robinson. She is the CEO of Robinson Hill, but also she's the founder of the GT Spirits Company. She's also an accomplished author and a speaker. By the way, I have her book, so definitely check it out. Lisa Buckley is the CEO of American Automation Services, and she is also the president of our Denver chapter. Chapters are a big push for us in AMAC, and if you're interested in joining, please definitely become a member of AMAC National, and then you select and be a member of any of our major chapters out there: Denver, Los Angeles, Portland, Chicago, Baltimore, Washington / DC, and Detroit. And we will be standing up a couple more chapters pretty soon. Stay tuned. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Lynwood Bibbens. He is the chairman and CEO of ReachTV. And I should kind of share that it will be announced soon that we will be announcing a partnership with ReachTV as they become our official media partner in all things of storytelling. So we're going to utilize and partner with ReachTV to tell stories of our members, of our initiatives, our mission, et cetera, et cetera. So stay tuned because we have a lot planned. So with that very, very, very long intro, we're just going to jump right into it. And of course, Woody, if you don't mind, ladies first, and we're going to go read with D. Um, were you just an entrepreneur from the jump? Did you go into it? And this is more about, were you born or were you built as an entrepreneur?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be with all of you today. And, when you think about entrepreneurship, I would say it's a little bit of both. I grew up, I got to tell you, delivering newspapers, and I had a lemonade stand like a whole lot of people, and also took my very first job in retail. But, from the journey, I mean, my mom always understood the importance of education. And so, going from undergrad to grad, and then I actually recognizing that there was something more I wanted to do. And what that was I wanted to feel fulfilled. And even though I knew I could do the work, and I had a great career as a banker, I was also in marketing for Johnson & Johnson. My last corporate job was at Leo Burnett. But I also just knew there was a bug inside, that there was something I wanted to do. And I won't tell you that my mom didn't think that I was crazy. She did at the time. But I also knew that she was an entrepreneur. It was very important. She didn't think of herself that way, but she had 4 kids to take care of, and she was doing all sorts of things. So I earned it. So I would say I was mostly born in it because I witnessed my mom.
Lisa?
Great. Good morning, and also thanks for having me. And I'm a special girl because this is my birthday. It's my
Oh,
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Hey, Lisa.
What a nice treat.
Another
So anyway,
birthday.
oh, thank you. I don't know what, I'm kind of a hybrid, Ramon. My mom and dad grew up, my mom and dad, as we were kids, I'm one of 6, worked in a paper mill, and they had aspirations of being entrepreneurs. And my dad left first, and excuse me, my mom left first. My dad stayed on and worked the business and worked at the factory and all that good stuff. And we grew up with shareholder meetings. I remember them in our living room. Our mom and dad gave us all stock, and I'm like, what the heck is this stuff? And but I knew they were working a lot harder, and they opened up a retail furniture business, Smitty's Furniture, that lasted for about 26 years. We never missed a meal and had a roof over our head. But I had a desire to go to corporate, and my dad encouraged me to kind of spread my wings and not necessarily do the entrepreneurial route. So I worked at Ford Motor Company, also Maytag Corporation. I ran the laundry division there. And my last job was chief marketing officer at Western Union at First Data. So and surprisingly enough, my husband and I we got pregnant, and I got back, and the corporate thing was you left in musical chairs. So I said, let me try this route, go into business with my husband, because he had decided to take the entrepreneurial leap. And we celebrated actually 23 years in business, February 1st. So it wasn't something I intended to do. But it happened, and it didn't. I knew the hard work was there from my mom and dad. So we own a security firm. We have over 100 employees. And our goal is to be the largest woman-owned, Black-owned security firm in the country. So who would have thunk it? So here we are.
Here we are. Woody?
Yeah, I don't think I don't know if you're born with it or not. I think you figure it out. I think my discovery of it was sewing Cutco knives in college, and anybody who sold Cutco knives could tell you what their ravage sale is, their closing ratio, and then I opened an office the next year. So I did $25,000 in knives my first summer. Really got to play beach volleyball and chill and work because I knew what I was going to make. I got it down to a science, and then they got me to open an office, and I was recruiting the same people I was partying with at college, and they didn't even know it. I put a suit on and some glasses that I didn't need. So it started from there, and then in that, I also knew that I could help build, and even in college, after I graduated college, 3 of my friends had started a company, and they asked me to come in because I was a nice guy, but I was an organized guy. So they asked me to fix something, and that was supposed to be 6 months. It took me 2 months, and I'm like, all right, I'm bored now. What are these things you're selling? And it was computers, and next thing I knew, I was top sales guy, and and become a partner, and I haven't looked back.
Excellent. Well, I was going to ask a question about skills that you've acquired and learned, but just hearing your stories, it seems like at the very least you've kind of cut your teeth somewhere, right? And you kind of earned your stripes, get that foundational knowledge off the bat. So I'm going to pivot a little bit because I know I've shared some of the questions with you guys, but like, what is just talk about the value of being a lifelong learner. I mean, an entrepreneur, you're pretty much, I know folks who are starting constantly businesses over and over again. You're on that treadmill, right? It's a cycle. So there's always something you're learning from your first time or your previous time that you're now making sure you're either going to apply or not repeat that mistake. But just talk about being, I guess, what people like to say, a lifelong learner, and how you apply that every day to your endeavors. I'll start with you, Dee.
Well, first of all, I have embraced that I am a life learner and recognize that every day there's opportunity to learn something, and having that level of openness just opens up opportunities. And I would even say that I got into the airport space with that mentality. Someone was just mentioning, here's an opportunity and you sort of explore it. I keep my eyes open for things all the time, and I investigate. And even to this day, in some of my new ventures, it's all been about learning. And when you stop learning, I just think that you close the door to how you might scale your business or how you might even help other people. The learning just really is also about what you can share with other people, because you'll see other people who are on the journey. And I know all of us on this call see ourselves in others. And I know that they all have a heart to touch other people and help them. And I realize and accept that now my mission is shortening the runway to success. We've learned a lot on our journeys. I also know that some lessons have to be learned on our own, but there are certain things that we can help people so they can navigate and get there sooner than we all did. I'm certain of that.
Lisa?
I would probably call it purposeful learning, where definitely lifelong. But as I look back at my career, it was kind of it's been a two-pronged. One, with my corporate experience, I tell you, I wouldn't give up my years at Ford Motor Company for anything, because I learned a ton. It taught me how to write. I mean, really write well, and some of those key skills that I've always been able to utilize. And then as an entrepreneur, going to graduate school and all that good stuff too. But as an entrepreneur, some of those learnings that we go through are very hard. They're very difficult, and they can be any aspect of it. I mean, and in today's world, HR with employee shortages and Gen Z and different approaches as to how we all may see work life and whatnot. That purposeful learning and how we really want to connect with others, and how we, even if we disagree, to really have people to know that you do respect them and that you do appreciate them. And I think that's what purposeful learning comes in for me, that I really have to dig deeper. The more I work, the deeper I have to dig, because we're all so different. And those differences are to be celebrated, I think. And I would agree with Dee. How can we shorten that runway for other people? I think that is so important, because when I look at how long it took us to really get in the airport space, it was like 12 years. And I don't know that it should take that long for everybody. How can we share those learnings? How can we do it in a way that is very helpful for others? And so I see it as purposeful learning, and how can I continue to grow as a professional, but also help others? Because I think we have that obligation to do that.
And Lisa, can I interject for a moment there? Because you said something important, and it's really a plug for AMAC, for anybody on this call who hasn't joined and understood the value. But I remember my very first AMAC meeting, and talk about learning. I went there as a sponge. I heard and lessons, and actually learned a lot about what not to do in those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. And so I would encourage anyone to be a part of this community, because we always just think about the next RFP. It's not about that. There's a group of people who are literally they're teachers, and they're there to open up doors. But if you don't show up in those rooms, and they will teach you how to shorten that runway as well.
Right.
And so they need to be at AMAC in any time, like I said, and we're learning still as seasoned in this journey,
Right.
we all know that there's opportunities. So just a little plug for AMAC, but more about anybody who really wants to be in the space. This is where it starts.
Well, I will say, and I'll get to you in a second, Woody, I promise. But in the spirit of that, we are developing a business capacity accelerator, and we'll be launching that soon. And the goal is, like you were saying, not just to shorten the runway, but introduce people and give them some foundational knowledge of doing business in this space. But I appreciate the kind words, and I'm sure Ebony does too. But how about you, Woody? I'm sure you've come across some things in terms of like lifelong learning in your side of the business.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hybrided both of what Lisa and what Dee is saying. I mean, I worked, although I had my own company, I always worked inside of big Fortune 500 companies with my biggest partners. And what I always learned was I used to sit in the rooms and try to understand their mentality. Because what you understand what they're trying to accomplish, a lot of times the bigger corporations, they can't go compete in these really innovative things. They got to wait until they can buy them at the top. So what happens is that's your opportunity to bring innovation to Fortune 500 companies. That's the opportunity, and that's exponential growth. And what I think I've always studied is where's those windows of opportunity, and how can how can we as a company or I come up with a solution that solves those issues? Because a lot of times the big corporations can't, right? That's just they don't move in that speed that's needed to do that. I always tell our team we failed like 10 times testing things before they finished testing one because we can move at that speed, and that's our competitive advantage. And for me personally, what I think is learned early on in my career, and I thought it was that everybody knew it was. I learned how to look at a solution. How can I scale it? And that's a skill set that is extremely important when you're talking about economics and how do you really make something work. It's scale. When it comes to us, in particular, minorities, Black, women, everybody in there, the easy objection is you don't have enough scale. You don't have enough this. So I've always in my career built things the backwards way. I looked at where can I scale and then built backwards into it. So that question and that objection was never an option for anyone. And I think that's one of my biggest things I learned. And I'm always constantly learning ways to find ways to scale that are efficient and effective that the big boys then come back and say, let me copy that. So that's my biggest thing. I think I'm always looking for those angles.
I want to
So,
chime in on something you said, though, that I want us all to recognize is that there is success and failure, I say. You
yes,
talk about the failures 10 times plus, and you can do it faster than maybe corporations. But I believe that people sit on the sideline and pray to do this or that, and they don't recognize that that's where we learn. That's where we get stretched. And so I love that you were talking about how you failed 10 times and you see it didn't stop you. It just gave you information. And when we start looking at the failures, it's just that, learning opportunities, things that help us to have more information to make better decisions along the way. That's what, and Nelson Mandela would say, I don't fail, right? I said, I either lose, I either win or I learn. And I've embraced that mentality. And when you were talking, and as well as you, Lisa, I know that that's also how you guys live your life as well.
yeah. I tell people all the time in my company, really quick, Ramon, is I will never fire you for failing. I will fire you if you're not doing anything, right? And I'd rather you go fail
Absolutely.
and then we learn. But if you just
Yes.
do nothing and overanalyze and did nothing, then I don't need you because our competitive advantage is our speed and our ability to fail and move and fail and move. And
That's
if you
right.
don't take advantage of that, you're stalling, you're overthinking. I'd rather action than inaction. So thank you for that, D. But it's something that I've believed in since the early. I won't date myself too much, but since the early 90s, that's my focus.
But so is it easy to say then that this life isn't for everybody, right? I mean, we can say that everyone will say, I want to start my own business, but there has to be something that I guess I hate to say that you're wired differently in some ways. Would you say that, Woody? And I'll go to Lisa.
This question comes up to me a lot on a bunch of different things, and I'm just very blunt. Instagram's not real, right? Like it doesn't. You don't start a business tomorrow and all of a sudden you're successful. I think social media has people thinking that he can do anything quickly, and some of these weird stories they say. I think people send me notes all the time. Congrats, like it happened yesterday. This is our 8th year as Reach TV, and now you're starting to see that scale and the other opportunities come in. But this is not overnight. It's overnight 8 years in the making, right? And overnight 10 years in the making. And I tell people that start a company, think about 5 years is going to be your horizon before you really start to have a chance to start making money. And usually you're on that 7th year where you really get into a rhythm and get where you really want to go. Sometimes it's earlier, but most of the time you're going to run through that. And all of us, I'd say the wiring it's what we already talked about. Knowing how to fail and not know that's personal. Sometimes things don't work, and the ability is really just to brush that off. I don't go whether we win or lose doesn't affect how I am, right? And that's the really key is win or lose doesn't change me. It's just when we won or lost. I don't even think about those things. I just keep going and focus on what I want to accomplish, and win or lose are just going to happen. You can't control it. Mentally, that's where you have to be an entrepreneur, to really be successful long term. Because if you're going to obsess over every win and loss, you probably should go back to corporate, where the corporation can deal with that. But it's not for entrepreneurs. And be blunt with you, last thing I'll say is there is sacrifice. I mean, there's a beauty in both. I coach my son, but also I work a lot of hours, right? So I can be in a little bit of all that hybrid of being an entrepreneur. You are responsible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is no off time. So I love to say we work 9 to 5, but nobody here works 9 to 5.
No. Lisa, how about you?
Yes. What do you nailed it. And I would say to add to that, we all get it within our organizations. Oh, I got to call off because of a family emergency. I have, this happened. I had it just before I got on the call, a guy didn't show up to work. Oh, I had a fender bender, on and on and on. And one of the things when you lead that ship or you're responsible for it, as Woody said, if I can call you Woody, is that okay?
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
I love that. That's a great name. It's one of the things that I always say as women, we do it backwards and in high heels. The Ginger Roger adage, way before all of our time, but I just always love that. When I was a mom, I remember going to, when my kids were little, rather, I'm still a mom. When my kids were little, going to certification meetings on how to get our 8A. And people remember my son when he was in the stroller. And we had to figure out how to do it, because as an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily have those luxuries, quote unquote, and you got to deal with it all the time in spite of. My dad passed away in early mid 2000s in January. My brother-in-law, some of you on this call may know him, Muhammad Nassardeen, and he did recycling black dollars in Los Angeles. I had dropped dead of a massive heart attack at his desk. A week later, at his funeral, the morning after, my mother-in-law passed. And we came back to work and had a lawsuit to deal with. And we just had to keep going. We didn't even have time to grieve. So the thing I would say, are you wired? I think that resiliency you have to get. It's not necessarily failure in any option, or it's impossible to fail, because we have to fail and embrace it. But I think to know that as an entrepreneur, you have to get that resiliency as a parent, a member of your church, sister, brother, whatever. You have to dig deep and be able to keep going, because life happens to everybody, including us, but we don't have the luxury to stop.
Yeah. So Dee, can I sum it up by just saying grit? Is that kind of what it boils down to?
We call it grit and grace because we hope that we do it with a lot of finesse and the way that we execute. And, I mean, they've answered this question so beautifully. And the only thing that I would add, and this is a lesson that my mom taught me and it has helped me on this journey. No one ever said it would be easy, period. And then if you expect easy, then you should not do this job. That's simple. But when I understood that when things did get hard, then I understood it and I managed it. and you keep going. But if people are afraid of adversity and obstacles and all the things that we live with day in and day out, this isn't for anyone. This is not for the faint at heart. But if you embrace it, it's going to be hard. It actually is a little easier. So when you do face those things, you just figure out how to be solution focused. And the other thing about scaling, and I know this about these two already, we've learned how to not work always in our business. We always knew we wanted to scale. We're looking for new opportunities. We had to learn to work on it. And I had to learn that very early on. And because it's easy to want to hold on to something tightly and then say that you're the only one who can do this job. And I knew that there were people who were, I call my involuntary partners. You guys know about those folks who want to take things from you, but I knew I could sacrifice that in order to be able to scale and move on to the next and a greater opportunity. So, I absolutely just say, long as you can do some hard stuff and keep fighting, you have a chance. And by the way, and also being willing to pivot, because what I started in is not where I am today. You learn, you leverage that, you keep moving, and it's okay. We think about this baby we have, and we got to hold so tight, and then we can't do anything else. And yet you're failing, but yet you're not seeing what you learned, so you then move to something else. And so if you think about where I started with gift baskets, for heaven's sakes, right? And try to do that in corporate American, and then to where I am today, being able to pivot, and large corporations do it all the time. Samsonite with luggage, and look what they do today. Any company is either, expanding or pivoting to something else.
And I'm sorry, because I'm married to an educator, and so I'm really glomming onto the learning aspect of this. I had read a book several years ago called Range. And it was just talking about how the broad skill set, the breadth of skills will trump obviously the depth of skills. And the author was basically talking about how you're at a point in your life early on, or maybe continuing, you're just acquiring skills, and that, as Dee had mentioned, where you start and where you end up are too rarely ever the same thing. And so I'm just curious, like, what is, and I want to make it fun, but what is a fun thing that you've happened to learn that you could kind of go forward and say, I did this? And it doesn't have to be related to the business, but obviously it impacted this. Dee, I know you had to learn a little bit about the spirits industry. I don't know if you saw yourself in that before or not.
Oh, you know what? Absolutely not. I had no idea. I've been in the food and beverage space. I mean, we just celebrated, we're over 25 years, which is, a blessing in itself. And who would have imagined? And then I loved drinking bourbon. And, but back to life learner, and I'm a curious sort. So I said, well, I'm curious what it takes to make bourbon. So I decided I was going to I was studying how to be a craft distiller. And so I studied it, and then I'm like, well, if I know how to do this, might as well make it. It was really sort of like that. We see opportunities. Now, mind you, I'm very big on data, and I study things. So when I have an idea, I say I'm an intuitive entrepreneur, and I know that's the same for all of us on this call. But at the same time, I validate, it's sort of trust and validate. And so I have an idea. In this case, who I would have never known. And here I am now with this amazing bourbon that we're launching to the world. And it's just been an amazing journey. But no, I had no idea. But this is also when you sort of look at your loves and the things you learn, and when you realize I might have the skill set to do it, and why not me? And I also know this, I just fundamentally believe that you have to see it to believe it. And part of this purpose that I have about shortening the runway is we have to demonstrate to others that you can do this. There's nothing that you can't do. But too often there aren't many people who look like us in some of the industries. And I've certainly chosen some of the most difficult ones, from being in the spirit space, and some of them even might, many of you might know I deal in golf. I'm a trustee for the PGA's foundation, and very male driven. But by the way, I hope more people join the golf outing, and that they actually consider playing golf. There's a lot of benefits for doing that, but who would have known? Absolutely.
So Lisa, do you have any fun skill that you feel you've acquired? I mean, not necessarily this craft distilling, but that you can apply.
It's funny. I want I want to be Dee when I grow up. Do the fun stuff and into business. You know what I mean? We're starting to get to that fun part. And aviation has been a cool part of that, because my husband always had a desire to possibly get on the concession side, where he has a tech store in the airport. And my thought was always to be able to have a wine store. So, or your work bourbon, I'm wine. But we're now, and that's one of the beauties of being an entrepreneur, where you have fun looking at those different revenue streams. So, say for example, if you have grown up in sports or music, and say you grew up playing classical, but then you go to jazz, like someone like Lizzo, right? Or how she did it. It's the same thing as an entrepreneur, where you can look at those different times where you learn your core craft and then are able to do different things. But I tell you a cute story. When my kids were little, my son's 21 and my daughter's 16, I couldn't keep up with their mittens. I hated it. And I knew as a kid, we had these things on our coats, and I grew up in Michigan, that you could clip on your mittens, right? And I could never, ever find them. I don't know what they were called. I don't know anything. My husband and I go out to dinner on Valentine's Day, and he said, "I have an early birthday present for you." He said, "You will not guess in a million years what it is." And I'm like, "What?" And it was these clips. And now I'm going to buy up a bunch of those clips. I'm going to get me a little Amazon website, and I'm going to sell them for those moms that can't keep up with the gloves for their kids, just for fun. I know that's kind of weird, but
There's nothing weird about it. It's nothing weird. You saw opportunity
exactly.
in need. I think those are the best opportunities when you see
Exactly. So
need,
and it's seasonal, but I can't wait to do it. But I think we need that as entrepreneurs, to be able to have more fun in what we do and be able to laugh at it. And but I
know she's an entrepreneur, everybody, that she was okay to get some clips for her Valentine's Day present. I'm just saying.
They'd have a nice dinner and fly and roll back. So.
We're good with it. What's something that a skill that you might have picked up that you didn't expect to get?
When I sold my company in 2007, I was just sitting around, and it was a tech company. We did a lot of hardware stuff, Toshiba's, all different brands. And one of my biggest customers was DreamWorks. So I used to sell them, and then they would take the laptops and go to different sets, what have you. And I got to play golf on their things. Their CTO and I were good friends. So I'm sitting in my house like, all right, what am I going to do next? And he calls and says, "Hey, you seem to know everybody. We need to find funding." And I'm like, "What? Why would you need funding?" And he's like, "We need $150 million fund." I'm like, "It's funny. I just ran into CJ from SunTrust Bank in Atlanta, and I called him. He's like, 'No way.'" So we flew out to LA. I got to sit down. I had no idea about film or anything to do with it. But I got to sit in the room, and I said, "I don't want to get paid. I want to read every single contract so I can understand how this industry actually works." So my love of learning what was going on, I started reading through these agreements going, these don't make sense, right? And so I quickly dove in and started to understand film finance. But what I understood was how content is actually distributed, how it's licensed, how the rights work. And so I did that for like 7 years. That was the precursor from my tech world, hardware world, online world, to come into where Reach came in. Because what I looked at that is most people don't understand that content rights windows is how Netflix became Netflix. They created their own window of content rights. YouTube created another window of content rights. When I launched ReachTV, we created our own window of content rights to the right of digital. So it's our closed circuit rights, then digital, then SVOD, AVOD, then television, then international. By creating our own set of rights for everybody, all the entrepreneurs here, and especially minorities, we got our own seat at the table. And that's what I did. So everybody in that ecosystem, when they go to license out content, they got to call us. And we scaled it quickly. So now we're part of that conversation. So when AMC came out with their show called The Songs of Hip Hop, they called me and said, "How do we get in your rights window?" Right? These things happen because of a random call from a relationship, which is another thing I think people do. Don't do so much on transactions and focus on relationships. Transactions will happen. And that came directly from me being a friend of Jeff, and he is a friend of mine to this day. And him thinking of me as a guy who can bring resources no matter what. And if that doesn't happen, we may not have ReachTV today. Just going back, I was thinking about that before this call, like literally that call randomly started this whole thing that led up to where we are today. So I think being able to learn, being able to keep relationships with people in every which way, and also being able to trade on your name is the last thing I'll say is been the same number for 30 years. And so when people say me they can't get in touch with me, I'm like, come on, man. I got the same number for 30 years. I mean, it's easy to find. I do the exact same thing every single day. So people know who I am and know what I'm about, but more importantly, they know even in bad times, I'm gonna be the same place as I am when it was good times. And so I think when I think about all these things in there, it's being true to who you are as a person, being true to who you are to the people that work for you, being true to people you work with, and know that there's integrity when you walk into a room. And I see it many, many times when I walk into conferences, who everybody else respects. It's really easy to pick up when you know what you're looking for. And I think I've always wanted to make sure that I was one of those people. And I really think about that on a day-to-day basis.
Excellent. I like that. My next question might be a little bit in that same vein, a little personal as well. I know it affects me if I'm starting a new job or a new company or even just making friends, and it centers usually around imposter syndrome. Um, I mean, I know very few people, or at least few people that will admit it to me that when they go in a room or into a job or a position that they just say, I know this right off the bat. And maybe some of you guys are that person. But just wanted to see if you guys can share maybe an imposter syndrome type of story from your end and how that kind of propelled you in your career as an entrepreneur. And maybe you still see it in some days now as you kind of launch new businesses or get into new rooms and new verticals. And Woody, we'll start with you.
This is a question that comes up to me a lot, and I answer it probably a little bit different than most people want to hear. Just not really. I was taught by my grandfather came from North Carolina, 1922, second grade education, and we always had this thing in our house. You are who you are. Come in that way, stay that way. Don't worry about anybody else. So I enter every room as me. I don't give a damn who's in the room. And I've had that since because I had a 6'4", 260-pound grandfather that said that's the way you walk in a room. When a bully was bullying me, he's like, you're not changing streets. You're walking down there, win or lose, you're going to stay the same exact person. So um, the imposter syndrome to me is when you're trying to be someone else. I'm always me, and I'm humble enough that if I don't know something in a room, I will ask. And I think sometimes just humbling yourself to be open to learn in a room makes everybody in the room, even if you don't feel like I know what I'm supposed to be doing here. I think if you humble yourself, you won't really have those feelings. I don't really have those feelings to be blunt with you. I really mostly have, if I feel like I'm lost, I will just ask. So it doesn't really something that happens to me because I'm so curious and so humble about it that I'll just say to you, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. So can you tell me what you're saying so I can learn it? I'm pretty good at learning. Tell me what you're talking about. And I think humbleness will help you get past that if you really you're honest with yourself. And I think you need to come in a room, no matter who's in a room, as you are all the time. Don't try to pretend that you are. Just be the same exact person, and you won't have those issues. In my opinion, you just won't have.
That's great. Woody's one of the few men that's not afraid to ask for directions. I like that. I love
And
it.
it'll be down the street. They're like, dude, it's right there.
How about you, Lisa?
I think for women, in a lot of ways, sometimes when we're at the table and we're the only one type of thing, we tend to think that in general we have to overcompensate, and I have to do something special to prove my value of being here. I couldn't agree with you more. When you have that genuineness and you walk in that room and knowing who you are, not as an arrogant person by any means, but approachable with a smile, happy to be there and respectful of others, it kind of comes through immediately. And it's very interesting. And we all know those stares we get. And someone will give you that look, like, what right do you have to be here? You know, or who let you know, who let you in the room, little girl? I love those stares because it's nothing. It's nothing to me. I was raised, I had every right to do and every ability to do whatever, wherever my dreams could take me. And it's really fun. And it's great sometimes. And I'm short, I'm only about 5'3". So if Woody and I were standing up and that type of thing. Okay, he's a handsome brother, and hope he sees me as a attractive sister. Next,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
I'm not going to let that get in the way. So that imposter syndrome, I think, particularly as entrepreneurs, and one thing if you've ever worked on the federal side, this helps a lot. You have your resume or you have your capabilities brief. Let it be what it is. The more you get those contracts, the more you get those projects, the more you prove with your clients, your brand will grow. If you do a good job, your experience will grow. It will come. Don't try to lead with stuff that you're not about, because guess what? You're going to be found out. And that's not fun. And doing something like that can take years to repair. It can take years. But enjoy the ride and accept who you are. And I think you're so right on being humble and just have fun with it and being at the table.
D.
You know, I wrote a chapter in my book on imposter syndrome because, like all of us, we hear about it, everyone's struggling with it, self included. And there's a story about a man who's actually a PhD. And he would literally have to go to the website and look at all of his accomplishments, all of the papers he published and everything. And it wasn't that he was being an ego, he had to remind himself of his accomplishments. And even though the world might want to acknowledge who you are, you don't need the world. And I think when we learn to run our own race, we walk in the room. And I've had to learn this, and this is for anyone. We walk, whether it's into a boardroom, any place. The reality is we actually earn the right to be there. Nobody opens a door, and we got to understand nobody gives us anything. So if you are there, you've done something already that was exceptional, amazing, and oftentimes we are the only one. But I will say this, the only one creates opportunities. And what I will also say, when we are the only one, our job is also to make sure that we open the door and bring others in there with us. But it is real. You're going to feel insecure. But when we learn to run our own race, be who we are, just show up. Woody, you said it best. I mean, yes, I'm not going to know that insecurity is there, but most of that is rooted in fear. And when I've learned to sort of live through that fear, fill it out, and really to figure out what the real source is. And the last thing I would say about it, I would say it used to be, you know, they think about the angry person, and I'll just call it the angry Black woman at times, right? And we had this little woodpecker, I call it a woodpecker on my shoulder, and it kept chipping away. And, you know, George Floyd caused a lot of people to kick that little woodpecker off. But the reality is that sometimes those microaggressions, all those things that are happening in the world, we take them to heart. But I finally just said, look, they're going to underestimate you. Then let them, and then go do you. You know, and then look what happens, right? When you just go in, why are you putting energy? It's inefficient. Woody doesn't have time to be thinking about what somebody else is thinking about him and all. It does not help his business model. Same thing with Lisa. All the things she wants to be. So if we can look at it this way, it prevents you from getting where you want to go. And I fundamentally believe we deserve to be anywhere our dreams take us, which you just said, Lisa. But we have to get out of that mind. I say the mind is our best asset. It doesn't know the difference between real or imagined thought. And if you keep thinking about that, that's going to manifest in your life. And one of the reasons I even wrote the book is just hit the band. Like, I can't think about this. It is not serving me. And I want people to feel empowered and use the gifts that God has given them.
Can I add something to this
Yeah,
really
go
quick?
ahead.
I think you're saying something that most people don't want to talk about. I love talking about it, but people don't. The person you talk to the most is yourself. And people don't want to acknowledge that. But you know, I know friends of mine who are very talented, and the thing that holds them back is them. They talk themselves right out of the things that they could be doing. And sometimes I watch them even as an athlete, as a business person, and really walk themselves right out of it. And I try to talk to them through it. Like, you're much better than you keep saying. You're much more talented than you keep saying. But the problem is, me telling you ain't helping. You got to tell you, and that's the person you have the most conversations with. And I think it's healthy that we have that statement. You talk to yourself more than anybody. So why the hell are you putting yourself down? Focus on, that's why I tried. My team laughs because they say, "Woody, how are you?" And I have the exact same sentence. Good, I'm breathing. And it's not that but that's my standard. Breathing, I'm good because I can fix anything if I'm breathing, and if I'm not breathing, then somebody else will fix it. But I think what I'm trying to tell them is there's nothing that you should be upset about, and the fact that you're breathing is a blessing. And once you got to that blessing, you can get any other blessing you really want, and just keep things a little bit more simple. So many things coming at everybody. I just try to simplify my day as much as I possibly can and simplify my thoughts because then it's going to help me empower me. And I think if we all just started kind of simplifying some of our thoughts, it will help us and empower us, to get where we want to go. So you were perfectly on. I love hearing that because that's something that I'm trying to tell. I tell my son, talk to people. I'm always telling them that same thing.
So just a couple more questions. I know you
If
guys.
if I can
Go
interject
ahead,
just one quick thing there, Ramon. My husband has a saying, and his name is Ishmael, and he's one of these people, you feel as though you've known him just after 5 minutes for 20 years or whatever. And he says, and he'll say, "How you doing, Ishmael?" And his comment always is, "I would be ungrateful if I complained." That's
Oh,
his thing.
sure.
And always approaching each day with gratitude and thankfulness, and no matter how small.
Yeah.
And we went through a rough patch a few years back, and every time when I go to the gas station, I'm like, "Lord, thank you. I can
Amen.
fill up my tank." It may seem kind of trite, but it's that gratitude, because if you have that thankfulness from the core, it's going to stay with you, and manifests itself in being humble, in being approachable, and being thankful for those opportunities that will come your way.
Ramon, can I add something for AMAC? Is I think about organizations like this in industries, because every industry has certain things. And when I look at an organization like this is what people or members need to hear and understand, that they're not alone. They're not the only ones with those thoughts, and that there's resources and mentors and people that they can reach out to and talk to, depending on whatever vertical they're in. If they're in the IT, if they're in the food and beverage, or the liquor side, whatever it is, there's so many of us. And I'm going to say something that really, Black people really want to. This is really pointed to Black people. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, there wasn't as much collaboration that I'm seeing today. And I'm just being very blunt and honest. We used to feel like there was only one seat and we all fought for the same seat. And I think we've now realized we can create our own table, we can invite our own guests, and we can have all as many seats as we want. And I've seen a much more collaborative effort between us to each and learn and grow in each other and lean on each other. And I think that's what AMAC can help us all connect each other. So that's why I'm so excited to partner with AMAC and be a part of this. Is these are the things that I live for. As I'm getting older, I'm just going, what's going to be my legacy? It's helping the next person learn how to scale. It's working with the next person to do X, Y, or Z, whatever their dreams or goals are. Can I help help them accomplish it while also helping me accomplish mine? So I really do appreciate organizations like this because it means that much to all the members inside of it.
Great. And I had, it's funny, I only got two questions, but now things keep popping up. But what you mentioned in terms of like the next, what have you guys, are you guys purposeful in terms of how you want to lead that next group and inspiring, or is it just, I'm going to lead by example? I mean, there are many ways to do that. So how are you looking to, I guess, be more purposeful in crafting or lifting up that next group of entrepreneurs? And we'll start with you, Lisa.
Did you say me?
Lisa, I'm sorry.
Lisa.
Oh, okay. For me, there's two, maybe three aspects to that. I'm still one of them I'm trying to figure out as it relates to my kids. But in terms of the greater community, I really subscribe to the generational wealth aspect and all that comes with that, because so many of us still are in our communities, can't spell, don't even know how to spell savings, let alone being disciplined, and how do you have financial strength and things of that nature. And we have an organization in Colorado called Cross Purpose that we're working on some unique relationships with, and it's focused on single moms, and to help them to get on career paths, whatever that may be, from construction to aviation to you name the vertical, and going from generational poverty to generational wealth. And we're participating in that with that organization as a company. And I really want to be able to drive a huge footprint, establish a huge footprint, 100, 200, 500 women that we, or more, that we can work with, collaborate with, to go forward, to see them grow and develop their own companies, help their children to go to trade schools and whatnot. So I'm really excited about that path and what that may mean for my personal legacy. The other one is mentoring, as Dee said it, and I think Woody said it as well. We have to give back more to help that aspect of that runway to be shortened. Not that learning is not good and those mistakes and failures are not good, but it shouldn't take you 40 years to achieve your dreams when you're good at it, and you'll know what that time frame is. So that's one aspect. And the last really is for my children to be able to have that exponential thing with my parents and aunts and uncles and grandparents gave to me, how to make sure that my children see their responsibility with that. So that it's something that's really heartfelt, and I think about a lot, and it's something that's I'm developing more and more. And I know it's going to come to me as to how specifically it's going to happen. And I hope one day in the very near future, one of you can ask me, or either someone in the audience or you as panelists, and you, Ramon, can say, Lisa, where are you with that? And I can sincerely say and emphatically say, this is what's happened, and I've had this kind of impact on these people. So that's kind of how I see that for me.
Indeed.
As we're all blessed, and we know that, I just have fundamentally believed in this universal law of giving, and that we have to give back. Mm-hmm. And not to give just because we expect something back, but that, frankly, we have a responsibility. And even, I sponsor fellows that come into Charleston every year on the golf aspect. I actually speak at the Cornell's Women Entrepreneurship Institute, and these are generally young moms, all just trying to figure life out. And See Ahead is another program that I work with. But right now, even the bourbon, so the bourbon is called Good Trouble. And people think about it being just, hey, she's got a bourbon brand. Actually, no, I have a lifestyle brand. Good Trouble is really about how we show up in the world, how we actually shine our light. I believe there's light in all of us if we choose it. And so we know we have a responsibility. I truly believe that we have to tame this raging bull of hate and misogyny and racism in the world. And so the real hope is to help people do that. Once someone said, well, I want to eradicate racism. And I was I think it was the YWCA's mission. And I was like, can we really do that? Well, actually, we might not, but we can close the gap. And when we close that gap, we're also creating opportunities for people, if you think about it in that way, because there's the obstacles, like what he said, the way we think. And so I'm actually using bourbon as a tool. That's what this is all about, and helping people. And I also know that we all stand on really big shoulders, and we got to carry it forward. So I just see there's opportunities in every way in our lives and places we go, organizations that we are members of. We're here for a reason. We want to be there. We are honored to be here speaking with you, Ramon, and the community of AMAC. because we know even within this organization, there's a way to help people. He talked about collaboration, talking about creating and just entering the space, which seems almost impossible. And there are people, if you ask, and you say, well, best Woody, just reach out. Somebody will help you. And we must stop thinking we got to do it all alone. I don't do anything alone. I didn't get here on these Robinson. I might be got a vision, but I'm going to figure it out like Woody and Lisa. But we have opportunities to learn. But here's the wonderful part: as we're teaching others and helping others, they help us.
And Woody?
Mine are very, I'm gonna bullet point them. I'll start with number one is helping my team learn how to grow from. Some came from corporate, some came from some business, some came right from college and working for me, and they're learning the entire business ecosystem through our company. And I'm moving them around in different things and exposing them to different parts of it and forcing them to grow. My plan is in 3 years, maybe somebody else is CEO, not me. There'll be an 11-year run. And this is really my focus is who am I training, how am I uplifting, and we have 4 or 5 women on our executive team. We're really focused on it. My goal is how do I keep bringing up the team so that they can shine without me around. And I try more and more to move myself out of the spotlight and put them in it. And that's the way I can start to do it with my team. I have the unique ability, and I guess I'm blessed. I have a lot of people with a lot of funds and private equity funds and $6 billion funds here and running these. And what they're not exposed to is the airport world. They know it, they don't know it, and they're trying to figure out how to get it. And this is what I talked to Ebony about. This is another thing where they're looking to fund minority-owned businesses. They want to come in, they don't know how. So another thing for my legacy is how can I bring those funds to minority businesses in the airport community and help them scale and grow for alternative financing and other financing so that they can actually scale out even bigger and faster and measured, of course. I also think there's something else about wealth. Lisa, you talked about it, about savings and other things. I also think there's something about trust and taxes and the way that people are putting their wealth that they're gaining, so it's not taxed away, so their kids are not benefiting. That education I've put myself through over the last 2 years, and went to all the big companies, and I went to the richest people and said, funny part is you ask anybody, I just want to pick your brain. They give you the opportunity and they really walk you through what they're doing. And some of the things that they're doing to save on taxes, all legal. I'm not telling you to do anything crazy. I'm telling you just putting certain things into a trust, and the trust gets into this, and they're taking loans from their trust. This is how they stay generational wealth and they keep it. We need to learn that in a way that's more digestible for us. And then the last thing is we do a show. We call it Hearts of the Community. Last year, I'm proud to say I went to it. It's Prevent Child Abuse America, and I like the word prevent. I always see everything's always after something happens. I wanted to see something that does it before. And the number one cause of child abuse is economics. Economics. So when I saw that, I thought about that. There was a speaker on a book, and then all of a sudden the screen dropped down and Oprah was scanned in. I was like, wow, that's cool. So I asked if we could recreate that in our studio, which we did. We had Oprah on, we had Dr. Bruce, so the book right here. Perry, what happens to you? I don't think you can see it.
We
But
can't.
the title of the book is What Happened to You? But the point of it is that it allowed me to really understand that there's organizations that are national and local that are helping families. $50 to a family is a tremendous help. And how do we drive that? I know the airports don't allow us to do certain things, but how can we do it as an organization on the back end and do it? So we've been committed. We've ran over 150 nonprofit commercials throughout our airports. We've gifted over $60,000 just to prevent child abuse. we are really focused on, we got Verizon that come in, we got other brands that come in. So my goal is, how do we do things that impact us the most? And minorities are the ones that are really in that child abuse because of things that we've had generational. And so it's, how can I make those impacts and those changes? That's really my focus. And think as I, the next 3 years, as I grow the business, really want to shift my focus on those things, because I think I can have a bigger impact, and I want to have a bigger impact on my legacy and my life.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for being a part of this roundtable, but I do want to end on a really, really fun note, and because it's Lisa's birthday. So real quick, I would like for each of you to share a guilty pleasure. PG, we're a family program, so let's keep it. But I'll start with you, Woody. Go ahead. Something that gets you disconnect from the world, running.
I literally have it. I don't take calls before a certain time every single day. None, zero. I get up every day. It's about the same time. I work out, and then I have a 3-pronged routine: steam, sauna, plunge, come back. My Wall Street Journal's there. My coffee's there. Do not take phone calls. I actually sometimes put my phone in the other room. I read all the highlights, whatever stories I want. And then, so it's like 2.5 hours where I'm up and I'm not talking to anybody. And it's kind of my reset every single day. And if that gets disrupted, I'm probably not in the greatest of a mood. So I try to make sure on a consistent basis, that's usually 4 days a week, sometimes 5, most of the time 5. It's one of those disciplines where even my assistant knows not to book anybody before those times. And if anybody's trying to call me, it better be emergency. So I think that's my really guilty pleasure. And every weekend, I usually try to get at least one cigar in. So those are my 2-pronged guilty pleasures.
How about you, Lisa, birthday girl?
Oh boy. Like I mentioned, I like my vino, and I like to relax with that, just with a good book. And I also like old TV shows. I like the where that takes me with my family, where we were growing up as kids, and some of the values and different things, and I enjoy that. And then lastly, with my husband, when and he's the last 3 years, man, he's just been having back issues, and I'm hoping that gets past this year, because my daughter has been my surrogate, if you will, and we would go golfing every Friday throughout the season, every Friday. We would be better if we could keep that year round and do something in the off season, right? But I just love those times. Those would be my guilty pleasures.
All right, Dee, close this out.
Well, listen, the way to close this out is right now, you guys are my guilty pleasure, because I'm taking all this stuff in and joyful for the moment. And I love to cook, and I also love fine food. And so, Lisa, you and I have to get together, because I love great wine. I'm red, whether Malbec, Shiraz, you name it, and I do like my bourbon. So, and then golf. I think we're going to have to put wine, bourbon, and golf together and get together. But you know what? I think to your question, Ramon, this is all about us finding ways to escape so we can recharge and get back to the job at hand. And so I have to have the escape, and I've learned that. I used to work through things, but the joy is now that, finding that balance, finding support around me. I love to go out, and like I said, great food and great friends. That's the best way I could end this. And happy birthday, Lisa, and your birthday.
Thank you. Thanks,
I was going to sing to
Happy
you.
birthday.
I was going to sing to you, but
We're good.
we're good.
We're good. Thank you, though.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for being a part of this. We are recording it. We will be making this available on our YouTube channel. And thanks again to our panel, Woody, Dee, and Lisa. And hopefully everyone stays safe, enjoy the weekend, and celebrate accordingly for Lisa's birthday. Thank you guys again. Take care.
Thank you, AMAC.
All right,
You
take
guys are
care.
great.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.